say was, if it's a he said, she said, there's no independent arbiter. But normally speaking, that's where you go to credibility. And as we know, this president repeatedly says things that are not true. He has told many lies about a variety of topics. And Giuliani being on TV saying any number of different statements has not helped.
Maggie, first of all, thank you for being on Team Camerata this morning, and thank you for stating it so much more cogently than I have.
Necessary. No thanks necessary.
No, listen, we've been debating all morning how much of a Mad Hatter some of these folks' logic can sometimes be, but I heard what Rudy Giuliani, I thought, was trying to say yesterday, and it wasn't the highbrow, any sort of highbrow discussion about truth, I felt. But in any event, the point of all of this, back to your reporting, is Don McGahn, okay, the president's attorney in the White House. You have reported that he spoke for much longer than anybody knew to Robert Mueller's team. So you say 30 hours over the past, I guess, 9 months. And is it your reporting? Well, first, let me back up a little bit. First, it is your reporting that he felt compelled to do so. It's quite unusual for an attorney to do that. He could have exercised attorney-client privilege or presidential privilege, but he didn't. So why did he feel so compelled to talk to Robert Mueller's people?
Well, because to your point about what kind of privilege it is, it's executive privilege because he's the lawyer for the White House, not the lawyer for the president. In fact, he has made clear to Donald Trump's chagrin over the course of many, many months. So that's one thing. The other thing is he didn't exercise it because the president did. He didn't exercise it because the president and his then main lawyers, John Dowd, his personal lawyer, and Ty Cobb, who was working out of the White House counsel's office and was the person dealing with the Mueller investigation, took the president at his word when the president said, I did nothing wrong. And they said, well, let's let people talk. This will clear this up soon. This will make this go fast. Don McGahn was afraid that he was being set up by that decision. That was a decision to let him go in, and then if things went south, Trump would then say, look, I just got terrible advice from Don McGahn, and that's why I made these decisions, related to a number of issues, such as the firing of Comey. That's how I did what I did. And so McGahn went in, and he was quite open about a number of topics, including things that it's not clear Mueller would have known otherwise. And among the things that he has been asked about is, or talks about, was the fact that Trump had told him to have Mueller dismissed last year. And I realize that there has been a lot of pushback from people who were not privy to Don McGahn and Trump's private conversations, who insist, no, that never happened. McGahn said to Mueller's folks, it did happen. So that's why he did what he did and where it becomes a danger, aside from the obvious, which is that you have an eyewitness who is now telling all kinds of things to the special counsel investigating possible obstruction. And also, don't forget, investigating possible collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russian government. Don McGahn was the lawyer for the campaign, so I don't think that that's irrelevant. But you end up in this situation where McGahn has been, very deep in a lot of these conversations, is able to sort of shed some light on it, and has been working in the White House this whole time. It's fascinating and very rare.
It is fascinating. And then, Maggie, is it your reporting that he then, after he spoke to Robert Mueller's people, came back to the White House and opened the kimono, so to speak, and disclosed to Team Trump everything that he shared?
Well, that's the other piece of it. No, it's his lawyer did not give a full, blow-by-blow accounting of everything that McGahn had said. And before McGahn went in, and this is on the White House, they did not ask what he planned to say. John Dowd and Ty Cobb did not seek to find out what he was going to say.
And why not? That seems curious.
That I can't speak to. I can't speak to why they did not think that that was worth doing, but almost every lawyer I have spoken with has been aghast that is how this process went.
Okay, and then explain your reporting that after your initial reporting came out this weekend about how fulsome an accounting Don McGahn gave to Mueller's team, more than any of us had known, that the White House seemed to be caught off guard by that.
Well, the White House was not fully aware, as you just noted, of what exactly was said by McGahn in these interviews, and they really didn't. There's a difference between the White House and the lawyers, right? A lot of people in the White House are just fine not knowing what was said because they don't want to know and don't want to be sucked further into this. Trump's lawyers and some of his advisors did not know, believed they had known. It is only becoming clear to them since our story that a lot more went on than they realized or than they had been led to believe by McGahn's lawyer. They are now in a bit of a scramble to figure it out. I'm not sure that they're going to. So when Rudy Giuliani claims, well, John Dowd has a pretty good sense of, and John Dowd, who's not on that team anymore, John Dowd has a pretty good sense of what was said. Giuliani is relying on Dowd, and Dowd, based on our reporting, does not.
Okay. Thank you very much for sharing all of that. Next topic, Michael Cohen, the president's longtime personal attorney and fixer. You also have reporting on just what kind of legal trouble he may be in. You have more specifics. So what's he looking at now?
Well, what prosecutors are looking at in the Southern District of New York is a potential bank fraud charge, basically improprieties related to $20 million worth of loans. Unclear whether that will also include, if they do go ahead that way, some kind of a campaign finance violation, or if it would be related in terms of how he made the payment to Stormy Daniels, the porn star who had claimed an affair with President Trump, who received a hush money payout from Michael Cohen. They might look at the method that was done as opposed to, simply a straight campaign finance violation. I think that the other question here is timing, obviously, and they are discussing whether to get this done by the end of this month. The end of this month is next week. They are looking at the window where we are within 60 days of an election approaching us fast, and I think there's a question of whether they want to go dark ahead of the election or try to get this done now.
So, as you know, Michael Cohen also seems to be signaling publicly that he would be willing to talk to Robert Mueller's investigators. Do we have any sense on whether they're going to take him up on that?
We don't know. I think that it would depend on whether he has a deal with the Southern District of New York in terms of cooperation. It certainly doesn't seem at the moment as if he does, but these things are really, really hard to tell. It's really hard to tell when somebody is cooperating with the FBI. I've been reminded of this repeatedly by former prosecutors. I think that is still true. I think if he has a cooperation deal with the Southern District of New York, which is the courthouse in Lower Manhattan, the federal courthouse, I think it would be contingent that he would supply information to Mueller. The question that is not clear is whether either Mueller's investigators or prosecutors in the Southern District think that Michael Cohen has information of value. Because it isn't just, I'll cooperate and then you get a deal. You have to be able to offer something of value.
Maggie Haberman, thank you very much for sharing all of your reporting with us this morning.
Thanks, guys.
Can I just say, even though Maggie says she's not on Team Berman here,
I know this has got to hurt. I know this has got to hurt.
I'm on Team Maggie. The important thing is I'm on Team Maggie because allegedly she's on vacation. And all she's doing is like burping out scoop after scoop after scoop. Some vacation. She's been on the byline of all these major stories over the last 40 hours.
I'm sure she appreciates that verb.
I'm on Team Maggie.
Me too.
Despite the fact she has a misguided opinion about you. All right, more than 175 former officials have signed a new statement this morning publicly condemning President Trump's decision to strip former CIA Director John Brennan of his security clearance. Career diplomats, former defense officials have now joined the group of former intelligence officials who have already spoken out to say, quote, our signatures below do not necessarily mean that we concur with the opinions expressed by former Director Brennan or the way in which he expressed them. What they do represent, however, is our firm belief that the country will be weakened if there is a political litmus test applied before seasoned experts are allowed to share their views. This now means that more than 250 former officials have spoken out in, I guess, 3 letters now. This spoken out against the president's decision to retaliate against Brennan, who has been very vocal still. Joining me now is former CIA intelligence officer David Priest. He was one of 60 former CIA officials who signed a statement on Friday. I guess that was the second of the 3. I've lost count. The important thing is that more than 250 so far, and I suppose, and going, have decided to speak out. Why do you think that is, David?
Yeah, John, that's one of the important things is just the sheer number, including some people who don't speak out publicly on things like this and have not done so before. The other part of it is the breadth of it, the fact that this is so wide. What happened is after some of us saw the letter that the former CIA directors and deputy directors had put out on Thursday, we wanted to add our voices to that, and we signed on to a very similar letter to theirs. What was amazing was what developed organically after that is all of us who signed it started getting besieged by people calling to us, either former colleagues or people from across the wider national security community saying, how can I stand up and express the same feeling? So this letter developed to allow that. What's amazing looking at it is there are no kidding Republicans on this list, and there are some no kidding Democrats on this list. But the vast majority of people on this list are completely nonpartisan, people who I don't even know their party affiliation, but people who have served the national security of the United States in the past and said this violation of a long-standing norm of security clearances being outside of politics has to stop.
Let me ask you this. Each one of the letters seems to include this type of disclaimer. Our signatures below do not necessarily mean that we concur with the opinions expressed by former CIA Director Brennan or the way in which he expressed them. Does that mean you are, am I right to infer, you are uncomfortable with the way he's chosen to express his opinions?
There's a big division on this because some people like both the words he said and the tone that he uses. Many other people have said because that in itself is different, because John Brennan is speaking out more publicly than CIA directors typically have before, and particularly in his tweets that he is taking a very direct tone, some people have said, even if you feel that way as a